Hi y'all, it's me again, back with the next chapter in the Sandicides fanfic I started, Swords and Sorcerers, a Sandicide Saga by swisskey. Not much to add on today, so hopefully y'all enjoy. This was a much longer fic to go over, I don't know, than the last one, so hope y'all enjoy, and let's get into it. Chapter 2, Sneaks and Snakes. Summary. While Thomas is asleep, Roman is scheming. When Thomas would sleep, dreams would generally fall under the preview of Roman, who personified all of the host's fanciful thoughts, passions, and fantasies. And this night was no different. As Thomas surrendered himself to sweet slumber, his eyes closed, and as he sank further into blissful rest, dreams slowly began to tug at the edges of his vision. Little did Thomas actually realize, inside his head, in the homey mindscape conjured by his imagination to house the four dominant facets of his personality, Prince Roman sat in his room, eagerly buzzing with creativity. Much like the other three facets of Thomas's personality, Roman's room was based heavily on the host's bedroom, but with his own dramatic flair. The walls were painted a deep red and plastered over almost every inch of free wall space with Disney posters of Broadway musicals, playbills, cast pictures of past shows, sheet music, and countless other metaphor alumni to the passion in Thomas's life. Bookshelves were packed just as full and heavily disorganized, but every book appeared deeply loved and thoroughly read dozens of times. The post of his huge four-poster bed reached up almost to the ceiling, draped in red curtains that seemed to just barely mask the messy bed within. Red, gold, and white pillow tassels among a scarlet blanket illuminated by patterns of gold crowns and white horses. Hanging down from the ceiling was a chandelier decorated with twisted branches and pointed antlers, and buzzing between the light bulbs were tiny floating fairy lights that orbited the chandelier like miniature suns. Roman himself, clothed in a fluffy red plaid fleece robe, wore silver satin pajamas, sat at a polished mahogany desk in an overstuffed brown leather cedar chair. He flipped through paperback books with the covers adorned by fantasy heroes, as well as dusty leather bound tomes that were scattered all over the desk, thrown down each book to write down another note on pieces of paper that were piled in four misshapen little stacks. He moved with singular purpose, eyes wide and bright with ideas, and his tongue peeking out of the back of his mouth. Truth be told, Roman thought to himself, I really do love working in here. It was absolutely true that something about Roman's room got the creative juices flowing, but the same could have been said about be said of being able to think clearer in Logan's room, to a sense of happiness and cheerful nostalgia in Patton's room, and even expertly, if sometimes unpleasant, sense of nervous energy in Virgil's room. Their rooms were dedicated to what they were and spent an expended amount of time in one would turn the inhabiting fancy towards the end. A chill ran through Roman's body as he remembered the sensation of spending too long in or even around Virgil's room. The woolly uncomfort impressed of nervousness that seemed to seep deeper and deeper into his spirit with each passing minute was completely unsettling. In a short doses, though, letting one of the other sides see things from another point of view seemed to make the whole living situation with the four of them a bit easier to deal with. Roman smiled to himself as he thought of the plan he had hatched, plotting to bring the other three sides to his room for a night of unbridled creative wonder. The prince's hands moved with even more feverishly over the papers as he thought about evenings with the events within the mindscape earlier in the day. Morning, chum chum Taru. Logan, the personification of logic within Thomas's mind, was seated in an armchair in the common room, his ankles crossed as he hummed along, off-key, to a half-memorized melody before freezing at Roman's greeting. He peeked up at the prince from behind the copy of Warfare in Middle Ages, the history of medieval military and strategical tactics. A pair of rust-set brown eyes behind thick black glasses only visible above the open book, one brow quirked. Just from seeing only half of his face, Roman could already sense the wave of annoyance rolling off of Logan at even the thought of his peace and quiet being interrupted. "Good morning, Roman," Logan simply replied, his words crisp and precisely spoken as always. "What do you want?" Roman knew that efficiency was one of the most desirable traits that Logan preferred, so time was truly of the essence to keep this conversation going so the fanciful side could get the logical one on board for his plan. Roman looked at Logan with a vague sense of shock. "What? I'm surprised at you, Logan. Can't I just greet one of my fellow facets and tell him how deeply I value his—" The prince trailed off at seeing the unamused expression in Logan's eyes. "Plan B, then. Direct approach." "Tonight," he answered, quick and to the point. "You, me, Patton, Virgil, my room, late night fun, be there." "No, thank you," Logan responded curtly before his eyes returned to his book. Indignant, but his spirits began to deflate. The prince whined, "Come on, why ever not?" Logan did not even bother looking up from his book again as he responded, "Because Thomas has a full day of editing to get through today, which is going to require all of my willpower to focus on the task at hand. That means this evening, when Thomas finally finishes, I would prefer to get a full night's of sleep so we can be productive tomorrow." "Come on, Logan." Roman kneeled down, resting his chin on the arm of Logan's chair. "It will be fun." "Then go ask Patton. He enjoys fun," the skeptical brain answered, unmoving. "I shall," the prince continued, unirritated, "after you say yes." Turning the page, Logan dryly responded, "Then it appears as if this is going to be an unproductive day for you." But who's surprised there? Letting out a frustrated sigh, Roman was quiet for another moment or two. While he had been expecting Logan to be a proverbial stick in the mud, he had not truly expected the intellectual to be so completed and vermiliant against a night of fun. You could just tell him what you wanted to do, Roman thought to himself, before another thought quickly shut it down. No, what's the point of a surprise if you have to spoil it to get them to show up? Roman contemplated Logan for another moment or so, the latter shifting in his seat once or twice, obviously noticing the form's uncomfortable glaze on him. The prince continued to think as he watched Logan's eyes peruse through yet another page before the teacher's finger shuffled over the page corner. Then he smiled before leaning in again. Come on, Logan. Doesn't Thomas deserve a break tomorrow? He's been working me, his spirit of boundless creativity, to the bone to get all of the filming done for his new video. And today is going to be a day of frustration as he tries to get the perfect transition, the perfect shot, the perfect everything. Aside from uploading the video tomorrow, it's going to be a day of rest for him anyway. Where's the harm in letting all of us enjoy some downtime? Logan's eyes stopped. Then a second or two later, he resigned the open book on his chest before turning his head to face Roman fully. What are you planning? Logan asked, his eyes zeroing in on Roman suspiciously. The prince held up his hand in mock surrender as he replies, Nothing wild, just come to my room tonight after the editing is all done and Thomas heads to bed. I promise it will be fun for everyone. Roman could see Logan weighing the choices in his head, so he brushed his argument. Besides, isn't a night of fun and a day of rest here and there more constitutional to a healthy mental outlook? Come on, Logan, please, pretty please. The fanciful side did his best to look at Logan with the saddest pair of puppy dog eyes. With a patent, it was a surefire way to get what he wanted, but with the logical side, it was always hit or miss depending on the day. Roman felt good about this one, though, as he could see his simple but effective argument winning over Logan's mind. Another couple of moments seemed to pass, and Roman held his breath. Before, Logan nodded consentently. Fine, he answered, but just for tonight. We don't want this to become a habit. A rush of excitement flowed through Roman as he shot up from his crouched position, punching the air as he cheered. Yes! Phase 1 complete, Roman thought to himself before looking back at Logan. Epic. Bring some snacks up to my room tonight. I'm off to snag the others. As Roman set off to the other parts of their mindscape house to harass Pen and Virgil, Logan shook his head and went back to his book, having to reread another section on the physics of Basilisk. Patton, the facet that embodied Thomas's morality, emotions, and inner child, sat at the kitchen table, his hands a ramen egg blue crayon and wrapped tightly in his fingers, was moving back and forth over a piece of paper to color in the sky behind stick figure drawings of their little tight-knit group. His tongue peeked out of the corner of his mouth. With a frantic pace at which his hands moved shook his body as he sat in the chair, his thick glasses sliding down the edge of his nose. A mug of hot cocoa filled to the brim with marshmallows and whipped cream sat next to him, the floating sugar puffs bobbing with the motion of the fuzzily facets coloring. Roman watched from the archway into the kitchen, completely unnoticed as Patton seemed to be in his own little world. The prince could hear a bit of nonsensical humming coming from the side of morality, one melody bleeding into another with no real rhyme or reason. It was only when the song seemed to metaphor realizing into a bushel and peck from guys and dolls that Patton was shaken from his color-induced stupor. His hands stopped for a moment, and he just stared into space for about 5 seconds silently before returning to coloring and murmuring a distinctly different tune. The fanciful side actually felt for a moment like he was interrupting on a private moment Patton was having with himself, and wondered whether he should wait an hour or so before trying to wrangle this new target into tonight's activities. When Patton looked up, the smile across his face was instantly mirrored by Roman as if on instinct. "How does he do that?" Roman mused. "Well, hey there, hi there, ho there, your highness," Patton began, pushing his glasses from the edge of his nose back to the bridge. "Need something?" "Thomas is taking a brief respite from editing, so I have some time before he needs my talents again," Roman responded as he took a step or two past the threshold into the kitchen, his boot heels clicking on the linoleum floor as he walked up to the table. "Are you all right, my friend?" "Nah," Patton answered, shaking his head and his smile faltering, making Roman's own heart sink a little before he looked up over the rim of his glasses. "I'm half left." Roman could not help the grimace that crossed his face, or the groan that left his lips as he face-palmed. Patton continuing through his laughter. "Sorry, bud, I couldn't resist, but yeah, I'm doing pretty okay. The last couple of days of filming kinda left us all feeling a little flustered, so I thought a little downtime coloring was the perfect thing to smooth out my edges." The prince stepped up to the side of the table so he could clearly see what Patton was drawing. He was greeted by a fairly blocky drawing of the four of them and Thomas on a field of green grass under a blue sky and a smiling yellow sun. If Roman were being completely honest, it wasn't that good, but the pride on Patton's face as he turned the piece of paper for Roman to see it better was all that truly mattered. The prince looked from the picture to the dad's face as a smile came to his lips. "That's very sweet of you, Patton, and colorful, and I do believe you truly captured the perfect balance of brown and purple in my hair." "Our hair color is all the same, but thanks a bunch," Patton replied, his cheeks turning a little redder at the praise before he proceeded. "How about you? Any plans for unrounding once all the editing is done?" "There's the opening," Roman thought to himself as he ran his fingers over the waxy blue and green horizon of Patton's picture, a moment or two passing before he answered. "Now that you mention it, wanted to hang out in my room tonight with me, Logan, and Virgil. I have a surprise I wanted to show you guys." When the word surprise fell from his lips, he immediately knew he had Patton in his grasp. As he watched, an excited grin spread across the other side's face before he broke into rambling chatter. "A surprise? Sure, what is it? Wait, don't spoil it for me. And for Logan and Virgil too? You shouldn't have. I'm kind of curious to what it is. Byron? Know that a surprise is a surprise, and I don't want to ruin it." Patton took in a breath, calming a little in the quiet second or two before he simply asked, "Should I bring anything?" "I certainly wouldn't mind a thermos of your famous hot chocolate," Roman responded, a smile on his own face that he didn't have to jump through hoops with Patton as he had to with Logan. "But truly, any snack you wish to bring are perfectly fine with me." Patton smiled as soon as he stood up from the table, his mind absolutely abuzz at just what Roman was planning as he spoke. "You got it, Roman!" As Patton started to move along the different cabinets and cupboards above and below the kitchen counter to begin making some hot chocolate for all four of them, Roman took the time to truly look at the picture that Patton had drawn. The four of them, each dressed in their favorite outfits with fuchsia hair, were holding hands from one end of the page to the other. It was truly heartwarming, and Roman simply could not help another smile from widening across his face. Patton, yep, the moral side responded, turning around with measuring spoons in his right hand. Roman picked up the picture and looked at the other side with a swooped curtain of magenta bangs. Would you mind terribly if I took this? I like it very much. Patton's cheeks burned the reddest Roman has ever seen. The red flush moved up even to his ears as he answered, Sure thing, if you like it that much, it's all yours. The prince brought the picture to his face, letting out a little squeal behind the paper at Patton's Beauty and the Beast reference, a blush of his own tinting his cheeks. My undying gratitude. With only another hearty chuckle, Patton turned back around, and Roman decided to leave the other side to the work at hand. The fanciful side gotten what he wanted, and then some, but not only help feeling the combined sense of pride and dread. The pride from the fact that he managed to corral both Patton and Logan into his plans for the evening, and dread, well, that came from the knowledge of what was ahead. Patton returned to humming as he worked, and Roman decided now was a good a time as any to pay a visit to Virgil. The door to Virgil's room loomed tall and foreboding before Roman as the prince stood there, his fist mere inches from the door as his eyes glimmered over the mirage of keep-out signs duct-taped all over the black wood. He was paralyzed from the memory of his last venture into anxiety's domain, where he had been left bittery, jittery, and not very glittery. The extra rush of nervous energy sent his passionate side scrambling to overcompensate, his mind racing as the desolation kept rising in his mind as to whatever he wanted to put himself through all of that again. You could just pop in, Roman reasoned with himself. It's like jumping into a really cold pool. Shocking, unpleasant, but you get used to it quicker. With the enticing Gryffindor-like notion jumping head first into an uncomfortable situation, Roman shook his head to dispel the thought. The only reason that he and the others, along with Thomas, had popped into Virgil's room the last time was because the anxious side had decided to completely remove himself from the situation, and it was an emergency that needed their immediate attention. Somehow, the prince mused, a night of creative pharmacy, and would not qualify for the same level of urgency. Going with Plan B in regards to Gryffindor gravery, Roman simply bit the bullet and rapped his knuckles 3 times on the black door, admittedly a bit sharper than he would have cared to, before letting his hand fall to his side once again. There we go, first move made, he thought, waiting in the silence of the hall for any kind of response behind the door before him. In Roman's own mind, the suspenseful silence stretched for far longer than he felt it truly should have, long enough for his mind to race with the possibility that it could have just been the three of them that evening while Virgil did his usual sulking and brooding. He was doing his best to include the anxious side in group activities that included everyone else, to make up for how he treated the gloomy side. Even with quip and sharp bantering remarks the two continued to throw at each other, Patton had been right for very long. Virgil was one of them, and the opportunity for fun should be shared between all 4 of them. I'm such a good person, Roman constantly mused to himself as he heard a slight bristle of noises from just behind the door, the creak and click of the turning doorknob, and then a shadowy umber-colored eye peered out. What? Virgil asked, without a single word lingering between them as the ball returned to the prince's court. Roman gave his best royal smile, replied, Greetings, friends! How art thou on this fine breezy day? The prince's voice trailed off as he could practically sense the quirked crystal eyebrow on the other side of the black door. Virgil never really had the patience for Roman's flowery approach to language, much in the same way as Logan did, and he was empathetically waiting for the fanciful side to quickly get the point out. Look, Roman conceded, his shoulders slumping a little when his natural charm seemed to fail. Patton, Logan, and I are chilling in my room later tonight. I have a surprise for you guys, and I think you all enjoy. Are you in or out? Quick, direct, and simply cut to the heart of the matter was the best way to approach things with Virgil. Roman knew talking around the subject only invited doubt and assumptions, and given that the fact that the emo nightmare before him was the literal embodiment of anxiety and nervous energy, perhaps spelling it out was the only way to go. That way there was no way for things to get miscommunicated or lost in translation. Virgil came out a little bit from behind the door, smudged smoky black eyeshadow stark against his white skin and beneath his amber eyes as he stood wrapped in his oversized black and purple hoodie. He slouched as he stood there, the polar opposite of Roman's own puffed-out chest and confident demeanor. Silence continued on between them as Virgil simply regarded him, eyes wary as if he was searching for something unspoken signal or cue on Roman's own flawless face. Objectively, of course. As the quiet Virgil wore on throughout, doubt slowly began to creep its way into Roman's mind as his smile twitched and faltered. Did I say something wrong? Did I stutter something? Was I unclear about what I asked of him? Maybe my circumspect wonder of the request came across as more annoyed rather than straightforward to the point. Doesn't he realize I'm trying to be nice? What is wrong with him? What is wrong with me? Why is he looking at me like that? Is there something on my face? Is there something in my teeth? Does my breath stink? Did I brush my teeth this morning? What if he says no? The whole plan would be ruined. Pat and Logan would think I simply decided not to ask Virgil, and they blame me for everything. Roman's face must have given something away, because when he snapped out of his internal monologue, Virgil was looking at him with a puzzled expression. The prince shook his head as he asked, voice cracking, I'm terribly sorry. Did you say something? I said yeah, Virgil responded just as seductively. Surprised at having not had to plead his case to the ancient side, it was Roman's turn to wear a puzzled expression. What? Virgil asked, his voice gravelly as his eyes flushed with a touch of self-doubt, an inner monologue obviously running through his own mind this time. Roman began, clearing his throat as he stood there uncharacteristically sheepishly. I was half expecting to have to actually convince you to come along. Just pleasantly surprised is all. Virgil shrugged, his expression unchanging. Well, I mean, yeah, I figured if I'm going to try to do better about fitting in with you guys, I gotta take some kind of invitation. Besides, you came to me and decided to make a conscious effort to involve me, so thanks, I guess. As Virgil shifted uncomfortably on his feet, scratching the back of his neck, Roman just smiled warmly. Well, fantastic then. Pat and Logan will be heading over once Thomas is out for the night, so feel free to join them as well. The prince inadvertently revealed at both getting an easy affirmation answer as well as getting away from the anxious aura that pervaded Virgil's room. He spun on his wheels, taking a few steps down the hall. Wait up. Roman froze and spun back to face Virgil. Yes? The anxious side looked down at the floor. His feet shuffled as he muttered, just thanks for including me. As Roman opened his mouth to give some sort of flowery remark and a flourished bow, he was met with a black door shutting close again. It would seem that Roman would have to be satisfied with only the peak of a blush that tinted Virgil's face behind the magenta bangs in the split second before the door was closed. Satisfied, the prince continued back down the hall, his plan now set fully in motion. Game, set, match.